Live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, it's time for the Exit Exchange, brought to you by XPX Atlanta, dedicated to changing the trajectory of exit planning services in the Southeast. Now, here's your host.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Exit Exchange, brought to you by XPX Atlanta. I'm John Ray, sitting alongside David Shavzin and Mike Rosenthal. Gentlemen, welcome.
Good morning, John.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good
Mike.
morning.
Good morning to both of you. Great to see you again. And folks, again, just a reminder that this show is brought to you by XPX Atlanta. XPX Atlanta is fundamentally changing the trajectory of exit planning services in the southeastern United States. They do that by putting the client first, working collaboratively, thinking long-term, considering the human angle, and always learning. If you would like more information, go to xpxatlanta.org. I think you'll be glad you did. So, David, Mike, I don't know where we got this guest this morning.
I tell you, I know it's we're going to flip-flop things today. So, as John said, we are XPX Atlanta Exit Planning Exchange, a professional association, which translates to not-for-profit, and part of what helps us work and put on amazing programs all through the year is our sponsor lineup. And one of those sponsors is actually John Ray with RadioX North Fulton. So he hosts and produces this show over the course of the year. And this year we are interviewing some of our sponsors. And so we're going to turn the tables on John today. So this should be interesting. And why don't we just kick it off, John, with tell us what you do, give us an overview of the business. What's that elevator pitch when you're out at the cocktail party?
Thank you, David. I appreciate the invite. So I have two businesses, really, and that's part of what my story is. I started, I've got a business advisory practice that is about almost 10 years old now. And in that practice, I do a lot of different things, but most of the trajectory of that business right now is really helping professional services providers with their pricing. So I do a lot of that kind of work. That's another subject. But I also got involved with Business RadioX about 6 years ago now, coming up on the 6-year anniversary of the North Fulton studio. And I took the studio over 2 years ago to own it. Or I'm sorry, 5 years ago, I think it was. So I've lost track of time, David. I'm getting old. But
you're having fun, so you've lost track of time.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Yes, I am having fun. And that was really a situation where I was the sidekick to Mike Salmon, who my good pal, fellow studio partner now, who had started the studio, and I took it over from him. And I took it over because I was having fun, number one, and that's part of what life's all about. But I really enjoyed the whole business of helping others share their stories and then helping professional services providers use a mic to build their business. And that's how we make our money. We help business owners and leaders that want to do their own podcast, do their own show, plan, produce, promote that show. So those are the two ways I keep busy.
Well, good. So I guess maybe you could give us a little bit of information about why someone would want to host their own show through RadioX.
Sure. So, professional services providers have a problem, and one of their problems is, and I know this firsthand. So, is how do you distinguish yourself? And how do you engage in business development where you can move the needle in your business, but do it in an elegant way. And that's what we help our clients do. So I've discovered, and I've been at it a long time in a variety of capacities in B2B services. I don't know of any better way to elegantly open and deepen relationships than by having a show and using that to spotlight others. And what I've learned over time is if you are the center of the tribe that you want to serve, whatever that tribe is, let's say it's left-handed house painters. If you want to serve left-handed house painters, there's no better way to be at the center of that tribe and connect everyone in that tribe than being the one that owns the mic that highlights that tribe, right? And highlights the members of that tribe. So that's really our model. Sure, we do all the things you would expect with a podcast. I mean, we release it to all the podcast platforms. We make it sound great and so forth. But what we really do is help professional services providers use that mic to move the needle in their business.
Excellent. Nice. So, John, the hair service providers, and being one, I totally get what you're talking about. But pretty much everybody, right? It's got to figure out whatever industry. How do we be different?
Right. Exactly.
And distinguish and find that business. When you're looking at folks to come on and do a show, those professionals, what does that look like? Or what's the best candidate for you? Are there attributes that person needs to have to make this format make sense more than others?
Well, let me dispel one notion. Thank you for that question, because I want to dispel one notion because I heard this the other day. Somebody accused me of being an extrovert. Maybe I am. I don't know. The point is, you do not have to be an extrovert to do it. I mean, as a matter of fact, what I would tell people is if you're an introvert and don't really want to go to the networking events or those make you nervous, then maybe that's really when you need to have a show, because you've got a way to have a small group of people in a room and celebrate them. And that's a great way to network. So, I think the way to be different is to celebrate others. I mean, because we're in a world where, we get a lot of pitches every day. And and I think that's one thing that makes XPX Atlanta different in the XPX organization. I'll get to that in a second, but I just want to throw that out there. When you make it about other people, you stand out. And that's a philosophy that's as old as the hills. It works. It always works. It never does not work. But when you decide to do that and make that part of your business development strategy, you will stand out and you will move the needle in your business. And I think so it doesn't really matter if you have experience behind a mic. I had zero experience when I got started 6 years ago. And if you listen to my first show, please don't do that, folks. Please don't. But if you listen to that first show, you'll know that I had no experience. The point is, that's not what makes it work. What makes it work is, when you're celebrating others.
So follow-up question on that. If you think about the folks that you've got doing their own shows now, you don't have to name names, but what's a best example of someone who's worked that show really well, done it, used it, brought that tribe together as you're talking about, and obviously the end goal here is for them to be making some money, bringing in clients. So what comes to mind as a really good success story? Well,
I won't mention names on the success story, but I will say that I work with 9-figure professional services firms, 9-figure revenues, all the way down to solopreneurs, or I'll say across the spectrum to solopreneurs. I don't want to say down. And I'm going to shout out 2 of them because they're XPX members. We're going to celebrate our members, right? So one of them is Bill McDermott, the profitability coach, and another one is Anthony Chin. Bill hosts Profit Sense with Bill McDermott, and Anthony's show is Family Business Radio. I guess, one of my clients recently told me that they generated enough attributable business from their show every year to pay for 3 years worth of shows. So, that's the idea, right? And is to be able to point to attributable revenue, because we're always looking for attributable ROI to any of our marketing efforts, to that activity. So that's it's always gratifying to me to hear that. And I won't shout. I won't mention that name, but that's exciting when I hear that.
I think it's important, and it's great that people that own businesses take the time to track those kinds of things, right? I mean, it's pretty obvious, but you'd be amazed, right? That people don't. So, along with producing shows for your client hosts, you also have fun going on site to support your clients. Can you tell us about a recent or upcoming project?
Sure. Maybe I can talk a little bit about pricing. I mean, that's one of my one of the things I do when the mic's not on. So I help services providers with their pricing. That's a particular passion for me because I had the same problem. I think all professional services providers have a problem with their pricing. Now, that's a bit bold statement, but when I go speak on this subject, I've never had, and when I say who's happy with their pricing, I never have anyone raise their hand. So, anyone that's happy with their pricing, please write me and let me know. But the point of it is that the problem there is that we're pricing ourselves. There's a psychological thing with that, right? And it makes us a little queasy sometimes. It makes us think in ways we shouldn't think, in terms of, will someone accept, the price that I'm charging, so forth, right? So, I think what I do is I help folks change their mindset and understand some basic behavioral aspects to pricing that they need to understand to move the needle in their business. And by the way, changing your price is the fastest way to change the bottom line in your business. Now, this is an accounting fact. This is not my opinion. Check with your local CPA and they'll tell you that. So I'll shout out another one, Bruce McFadden. Check with Bruce over at Carr Riggs Ingram. He'll tell you that. So,
if people pay their bills, John.
Yeah,
you can charge.
Yeah,
always a prerequisite. Yes,
right. But the idea, my work involves is helping professional services providers work with less clients at a higher ticket. Because I think what happens with a lot of us is we get deep several years into that practice. We've come out of corporate or wherever we've come from. We started our own practice. We've several years into it. And then we're working way too hard for too little money. And we're like, why did we get into this, right? And so the problem typically there is pricing. And so how do you change your pricing so that you can work with fewer clients in a better, deeper way and have a better life? And that's really what it's all about. So that's the kind of work I do, is helping folks with their proposals, helping them move away from hourly pricing to value pricing. That's the kind of work I do.
Oh, that's great.
Are you able to, again, without naming names, maybe give us an example of a project or a, let's call it a pricing renovation job that you helped somebody with?
Absolutely. The one that I just got done with in this individual's business, they had they increased their average ticket in really about 45 days after we started our engagement, they increased their average ticket from about 15,000 to about 28 to 30,000. So now they've got to have a whole year to kind of get the beneficial impact of that. But the point of all that is that they're clearly on a path now to be doing much better than they have been. And they were doing pretty well to begin with. And that's really kind of part of the problem, right? I mean, they're getting a lot of clients at the wrong price, too many clients at the wrong price. And so now they're getting, they're offering options in what they do, and they're getting clients that are a better fit at the price they come in at. And their average ticket has gone up, significantly. So their revenue, overall revenue, is going to be up about 40% this year.
Yeah, first of all, I see that everywhere. So underscoring what you're saying, whatever the industry, not just the professional services.
Right.
And then, so you become, along with everything you stated, part therapist, right? Because it is, I think there's like psychology in there. There is, whether it's coming away from corporate or you're just starting out, you lose that business card, that company name. And it's just, now it's just, John Ray Inc. And it's like, well, you have to work your way up, and you discounted all the experience and expertise you had from before that. But I wanted to tie, like you say, this is exit planning exchange, and we're talking about building value and exiting. So not only are they making more money when we're doing that work with them and pushing money to the bottom line, right? That is making the firm more valuable, as they move forward towards that exit. So this all ties together, right? It's the current benefit of a lot more money in their pocket, and they're building value for that future transaction.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say to exit planning professionals that, one of the things I've heard again and again in XPX Atlanta is, how can we get clients to the table faster to plan for that exit instead of doing it a year ahead of time or 2 years ahead of time even, just how can we get them to that table faster? But how can we serve those clients that have just stumbled into the door and they want to sell in a year or two? Price. I mean, look, I think pricing's the answer to world peace, right? So just bear with me on that. But, that's one of the things I would just commend to folks that are thinking about how do I best serve that client is, let's look at that, because that's in that particular area where you can get bottom line results. If executed properly, you can get bottom line results much faster. And it's really important right now in the environment that we're in where, if you're in an material inputs business, for example, you better be looking at price increases if you haven't already done that, and how to implement that. We need to be helping folks do that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead, David.
Well, I was going to say, it's in the current crisis that we're in, and it's material inputs, but I would put people in the category of the material inputs too, because
absolutely
the environment today, you can't get people. People are coming in and working for 30 days and then leaving, and which is also interestingly become such a bigger factor. It always is, but in acquisition, if you've got a good team, right, an experienced team. Mm-hmm. That can be extraordinarily valuable depending on the situation of the buyer these days. So, yeah. So the widget inputs and people as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a great point, because and it probably for some firms the cost increases, the labor increases, personnel increases are faster than your cost of goods sold, right? So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No question.
So kind of an odd question in that vein. How do you know if your price increases are too high? I mean, how do you start to get the sense that, okay, I pushed the envelope as far as I can push it for now?
So I'm not sure I've run into anybody that's ever had that problem. Here's maybe let me reframe it and say, what some clients will say to you is like, why, you're too expensive. Well, if you're if a client says you're too expensive, then you haven't framed the value. It's your fault. It's my fault, right? So really the remedy for that is having a better value conversation around where that client sees value in the outcomes that they are looking for and the outcomes that you are able to deliver and how those things intersect, right? So what I tell people is when someone says you're too expensive, I think it's good to say too expensive relative to what? You know, what are we comparing to? Because the only way somebody can say that is in terms of comparison, right? Comparison to what? That's how everyone judges pricing. So when they're buying. So what have you framed to that client in terms of the value you provide, and have you really gone deep enough with that? That's the question. And so it's when you're getting that question again and again, there's a framing problem that you're having when it comes to having a conversation with that client to begin with. That's what I would tell you. And I've got that T-shirt. Okay. So and that's why I know it and recognize it. I've made all the mistakes. I've done all these things. So I get it. And it's a continual learning process. I call it a journey. It's a journey. I've got a podcast all around this called the Price and Value Journey. That's why I call it a journey. So it's something you learn again and again, and there's always something to learn with every client and every prospective client that comes through the door.
Yeah, it's interesting because the other tie-in, I think you're right. It's understanding who your target client is, like you're saying, right? So there may be somebody that's just too small for you. It's not necessarily sort of the value proposition is there. It's not the right fit with what they're doing, what their model is. And there may be somebody who can provide really good service to that client who maybe is newer in practice, for example, and isn't at a fee level where they need to be necessarily. But I wanted to swing back, John, on the show. What are the 3 or 4 things that your show hosts are doing post show? In other words, they brought people in, they've done the interview, it's posted, post out on LinkedIn. How else are they mining that, if you will, to raise the ROI from doing the show? Yeah,
so that's a great question. So, well, there's actually some pre-show work that we encourage our hosts to do, and that is having a pre-show call to talk to that client about their business and their work. And, you guys did something similar with me for this show, right? So we had a little call to talk about what we would talk about. Well, see, when you have your own show, this is an ideal way to get to know people, that if you're a professional services provider trying to get in the door and learn what people are doing, they will open up when your invitation is to the such and such show, right? They will tell you all sorts of things. And so having that pre-show call to do that is really important. And then you have the show. And then afterward, the contact is to follow up based on what has been heard and what you've heard in the show, and to say, hey, first of all, I want to meet with you to talk about how to share the show to maximize the impact that it has on you and your business. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. We've got some very specific ways that we recommend to share their show appearance to maximize the value. We got about 10 or 12 different ways to maximize the value of that. And then that's another opportunity to deepen the relationship and take that discussion a little further in terms of whatever direction you want to go, depending on your what's been discussed up until that point.
Okay. Well, I guess the last question we have is talk to us about XPX and why you're a sponsor of the organization. Why are you spending all this time working on the XPX, the Exit Exchange, which is the XPX radio show everybody's listening to now?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, obviously the organization, I say obvious, maybe it's not obvious to some, it's obvious to me that the organization has been thriving and doing quite well. And, I think I put my finger on collaboration and, making it about the client and what's best for the client. You don't see that in a lot of, just every business organization out there. You don't just necessarily see that as evidence, right? And it's right on the front door at XPX Atlanta. And that's one thing that I think is compelling about the organization. And I think that's one reason why it's been growing like it has. There's a great email that came out maybe last week about how XPX has thrived during the pandemic. And the thing that stood out for me was there's a lot of things in there, but that the members have grown 23% overall across the organization nationally since the pandemic started. Now, that's pretty compelling. And, throughout all that time, XPX Atlanta has shifted, pivoted. I hate that word, pivoted to serve its members, and has done that, I think, quite successfully. And now that things are back on a different track, I won't say normal, but different track, the organization continues to do that. So, the growth is the name of the game. And I guess the other thing, David, is that I'm a big believer that every group has a personality. It's of its own. And XPX has got a great personality. It's welcoming, and I think part of the reason why so many people join the organization and then get involved as sponsors, volunteers, board members, committee members, there's a huge percentage of the organization that's doing all that work every month. And that says a lot about the value that members get when they join XPX Atlanta. Maybe I ought to stop there because I keep going on that one, but
no,
I'm passionate.
Please keep going for an hour.
That's right. That's right. This show's suddenly an hour, right? No, I just think it's, I'm very pleased with what our involvement is. I think it's been great for us, and will continue to be.
No, I appreciate that, John. It's Mike, were you going to jump in on something?
No, I was just going to say, John, you use the term personality when I always hear this term as a lawyer about law firms, culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of annoying, actually. The term is used so much. So I really like that term personality because I think that's in some ways more descriptive of, and I think that's true for all organizations, whether they're nonprofits or business organizations. They have a personality.
Yeah, and that personality is independent of any particular member, person, committee, what have you. It develops over time, and it develops, and it of course it can change for good or for bad or sideways or whatever. But in the case of XPX Atlanta, it's that personality has evolved in a very fruitful way for all its members, and I think that's just a really I can't recommend the organization enough, and I'm just going to put a pitch out there for anybody listening to this show that thinks, well, I'm not an exit planner. Well, look, if you are a consultant, if you're a coach, if you're involved in early stage aspect of a business, you're an exit planner, folks. I'm sorry, but that's what you are. Maybe you don't call yourself that, but that's what you are, because ultimately that business owner is going to have to get rid of that business, even if that involves death. Okay. They're going to have to get rid of that business. That's just the way life is. So all of us are exit planners to some extent or the other. The question is just what stage of the cycle that we're in. So I would encourage folks to consider, come to a meeting, come to the orientation that's held every month, and check it out. And I think you'll be glad you did.
Yeah, I think, the membership is every stripe of consultant, like you're talking about, John. And I love what you said. I would take it a step further. You're saying everybody is an exit planner to some degree, with however they're helping that business owner. I think a part of our mission as XPX is to get all these service providers, all these professionals to really look at it that way. In other words, they're all trying to help. Clearly, they're all trying to help grow, trying to make more money for that owner. That overlay of with what in mind down the line, so whether you're working on a website or improving the supply chain or improving finances, it all ought to be with some long-term goal, and that ought to be, right, that transaction, that transition, that sale, whatever it is. Yeah. So that's definitely, so we are, a great point. Our membership is made up of anybody helping a business owner. And so they all ought to come and check it out.
Yeah. And one thing I would just add too, that I think is people, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, because a lot of people are this way, but I've had people say, you're such a great connector. Well, you become a great connector by being around great people that you can connect together and with your clients, right? So, therefore it's incumbent upon you, if you're going to take care of your client, to connect them, to be in organizations where you can meet great people and great professionals. And that's, I think what we enjoy at XPX Atlanta, just some fantastic professionals across the board that do great work. And so it's really important to always sharpen your network, and XPX Atlanta helps you do that.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that some of the things that I do for clients they appreciate most are introducing them to other people.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the work that I do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
John, I appreciate it. Coming on and being the star of the show today has been wonderful. We appreciate that. Everything you contribute. Your producer hat back on and close us out. How's that?
That sounds like a plan. Well, let me give my contact information, and I'll do that. For those that don't have that, to find first of all, to find this show, you can go to xpxatlantaradio.com. You can find a show archive of the series, and it's growing monthly, and we've got some great episodes in that archive. So check that out on not just the website, but on your favorite podcast app. So you'll get it immediately when it drops. And if you want to reach out to me, my website is johnray.co, or you can, of course, email me, John at johnray.co, or jray@businessradiox.com. Either one of those work. And again, my own podcast is pricevaluejourney.com, and that's also on your favorite podcast app. So there you go. And again, folks, just a quick reminder. I think you've heard me enough about this, but I'm going to say it one more time. XPX Atlanta is the place to be if you want to work with a collaborative-based networking exchange that has individuals and professionals that have a broad representation of exit planning competencies and are in it to put the client first. If that's the kind of organization you're interested in, and you should be if you're not, xpxatlanta.org is the place to go. Go check it out. So for my, I don't know what you guys are today. I was going to say for my co-host, but that's really not what we are today. But I'll say for my colleagues, David Shavzin, Mike Rosenthal, great to be with you. I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on another edition of the Exit Exchange.